Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of Cupcake Media, brought to you by Master Shake and the Silent Assassin Techie. You might have seen us on the Follow Through podcast, but we have now merged with the Cupcake Generation. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and just about any other hosting site. And today, we're going to talk about some fun stuff. What are we going to talk about, Techie?
We're going to talk about the EV generation.
The EV generation. What are your thoughts on the EV generation?
I have some pros and cons because I do own a EV myself. So
Awesome.
we're going to discuss all of that in this podcast.
Yeah, so for all the cupcakes out there, who kind of maybe suck on Elon's shillelagh a little too much, and we have respect for Elon, but Elon's a big shit talker. I mean, I wish I can spit as much bullshit as Elon and be a billionaire and not be in jail. Like, sign me up. But we both have EVs, and we're not trying to flex here. But Techie's got a Model 3, I got a Porsche Taycan Turbo, and we've both been talking about for a while now, because I've had my car for almost a year, and Techie, you've had it for almost a year, right?
Yeah.
And we've been talking about some of the pros and cons of just owning the cars, and we're also going to then dive into a little bit about this cupcake ideology that people like the Holy Emperor of California, Governor Newsom, who we like to call Nuisance because he's a major pain in our ass out here, has kind of brainwashed people to thinking that this is the solution to solving the climate when there's like 90 other things out there that are going to be a lot worse. So we're going to try to dive into that because the science is out there, but unfortunately, because we live in this like cupcake cancel culture mentality, which is like, if you don't believe what I believe in, then you're like a bigot or racist, or just because you got a penis, you can't be a man anymore. You got to admit that you're a woman. Like, if you go against this train of thought, then people don't want to listen to you. And unfortunately, the EV thing, while we all want clean air, we just don't see it as the ultimate solution to the multi-dimensional complex issues of climate change and global warming. So, Techie, why don't you tell people some of the issues you've had with... How about we start with the pros? Let's start with the pros first, of like having your Model 3. Like, what are some things you've liked about your electric car?
The biggest pros that I have is very obvious one is the, saving money.
Yeah.
I used to drive a C300 and pay like almost 120 like every month, and ever since I switched over, it's $50 a month just to get my car going. So that's the biggest pro that I have.
And just so people know, you mainly charge... Are you charging at home right now, or are you mainly charging at the charging stations?
I mainly charge at the supercharger.
Okay, so for people who don't know, Tech is mainly using the Tesla charging stations. He's not using any other source like Electrify America and ChargePoint. And by the way, whoever uses ChargePoint, like, you must be fucking unemployed because they have the slowest chargers on the planet. So what's interesting is, for me, my cost is actually more than owning a gas car because I charge at home.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, like, these are the things that people don't tell you about owning an EV. I've used Electrify America a few times because that's like Porsche and VW's system. If you don't have a membership, it ends up costing you as much as filling up your car, depending on like how much juice you have, like how much e-juice, right? Because it's like 43 cents a kilowatt. My battery's 93.4 kilowatts. So let's say like I was almost down to zero. It costs about like $40 to $50 to charge the car. But what people don't realize is, like, EVs aren't that fuel efficient. You know what I mean? Like, how often are you charging your car? You don't drive too much per day, right? How many miles do you think you drive?
I probably drive 15 to 20 miles a day, but
Okay.
I do have to charge like constantly. I know that's the like one of the biggest like problem that EV has.
Like, let's say if you were to charge fully on a Monday morning, when are you gonna have to charge your car again?
Probably afternoon
Wednesday?
on Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I'm in the same boat. And it's like, now I drive a lot. So like in a day, I might be driving anywhere from 80 to about 120 miles. And if I charge my car fully by Monday morning, I'll probably have to charge it like you Wednesday night. Whereas like my M3, doing the same route, if I fill it up on a Monday, depending on how civilized I drive, right? I can fill it up again by Friday, you know? What was great was during the pandemic, like, there was nobody on the fucking roads. Like, my M3, I was literally filling it up once a week because they're German, man. They're made to go like 100 miles an hour and just be efficient at those speeds. Yeah, that's kind of one issue that sucks. For me, like, what's happened is, so my first month of having my car, my electric bill went from $172 to $561. So that was fucking huge. It was a $400 increase, and it stayed that way consistently until we had to call our energy provider, which is Edison. They give you like specialized like time of use rates. So the funny thing is, you can't charge your car from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. because even with the discounted rate, it's like at 24 cents a kilowatt. So from 9 p.m. to 4 p.m., it's like, I think at 8 or 12 cents a kilowatt. But even then, like, I'm still about, depending on the season, right? Like, and right now we're going to summer, so starting now we can see how much more expensive my bill is. But even with the discounts, it's like at least on average $100 more than what it was from before, my utility bill. And right now we're getting close to maybe 200. And then people are like, oh, we can get solar. I'm like, well, dude, solar's not fucking cheap. It's like another 30, 40 grand just to get solar. Like, so it's like, you buy this car, you're charging at home, your electric bill is going up by $500, $400. Then it's still, even when you do the adjustments for like a better use rate, you're still up like $200 a month. And you do the math, and like, for me, the math there, and that's what people don't calculate. They go, oh, like, it's so much cheaper to charge at a charging station. But you and I talk about this, like, dude, charging stations are in the middle of like $10 fucking too. Like, you can't, like, I can't find a charging station down my street. Like, it's not like going anywhere where I need to go. It's like, I got to get off the freeway, go into a fucking mall, or go to some weird, like,
Parking
super
structure.
plaza. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like some
Yeah.
weird plaza that you never go to, and you're sitting there going like, okay, man, like the gas station is way, way better than this right now. You know?
Yep.
And then, like, by the time you're done charging, you're like stuck behind 2 hours of traffic in LA. Maybe if you live like in Kansas, like, waiting like an hour to charge your car is not a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
But in LA, you might as well just stab yourself, or in OC, you might as well just stab yourself in the neck, because you're like, oh, I'm charging at 1, I'm done at 2. Oh, fuck, now I'm going to be in the car for 2-3 hours, you know? What are, how do you like driving the car compared to your old Mercedes?
I mean, honestly, the Model 3 is very smooth. I have no
Yeah.
complaints about like the driving capability of the car. I think I like it better than the previous car that I had. But
Okay.
I just want to talk about like the biggest con that we mentioned
Okay.
earlier is the wait time for charging, right?
Okay.
So EV, it's ideal that you'll have like a charging at home. I know you have charging at home, but for me, I charge at the supercharger, and you know, sometimes if you're not planning out your trip, it can be a hassle because you're like 5% away from dying, and you had to find like an EV charger like immediately. So that's
Yeah.
one of the con that I have. Like that's the biggest one that I have. So I don't know about your experience.
So the wait time is huge. You know, what's funny is like California's electrical grid is so shitty that like Porsche couldn't install their fast chargers that they have in Europe, because in Europe most of the chargers are like at 350 kilowatts, especially in Germany. But we live in such a ass backwards state that just constantly wants to like just throw money out and get more money from us, and they don't give us anything in return. So a lot of their chargers are at 150 kilowatts, which is cool. So like the other day, I was able to just use an Electrify America because I had to. And unlike the Tesla fanboys, like you guys are all fucked. Like it was so funny because I was rolled in here. There's Electrify America and Tesla on the other side, and I saw people cursing and yelling at each other, like trying to fight to get into the Tesla spot. And I just roll in, I plug in. Porsche, like for right now, has one of the fastest charging systems for their cars because it's an 800-volt system. But I was like so to give you an idea, like within 20 minutes, I got roughly, I think 100 miles of range, which was cool. But if you do the wait time per, like, let's say gallon or mile fill up, right?
Yeah.
Like in a car, dude, like in a car, if I were to go fill up in 3 minutes, dude, I'm at full tank. I'm out. So the sad thing is that I waited 20 minutes, and when I got back on the road, there was so much traffic, like I was so mad. You know, because
Yeah.
it's nerve-wracking, man.
Mhm.
You know, and also like the other bad thing is like most of these chargers, and I don't know why they don't go and approach like Chevron and Mobil to like set these things up and just make the gas stations also be able to be profitable. Because on one side, you got to think about like, man, if they want to do this BS of getting rid of all the gas cars and make all of us be electric, like we're all going to kill each other. Because I've been to so many Tesla stations, I've seen people like literally screaming at the top of their lungs because they can't find a charging station, right?
Yeah.
And then they're yelling, then they're fighting. Like I've seen it all the time, right? But like the issue that I have is these things are like in the middle of like nowhere half the time, and there's nothing there. You can't even go piss. Like I saw a woman. I'm not kidding you. I was at Electrify America when I first had my car, and I didn't have my charging station. She was at Tesla because strategically they're kind of close to one another in some areas because they go into shopping centers, you know.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the shopping center. It was just like everything was closed because it's Sunday, right?
Mhm.
She couldn't find anywhere to go eat, so she went and just pissed right around the corner on the building, dude. So I mean, like that's the whole point, you know. Like at least with the gas station, I love gas stations because they have like the best fucking sports drinks. They got like if you like energy drinks, they're really good. Some of them are like revamping their C stores, man. Like they got good energy bars. Like I can go pee, wash my hands. You know, like I'm good. You know.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that people, you know, don't consider. And it's just like also if you drive long distance and you got to go and wait to charge, like that's the issue. Like I'm lucky because I can at least in 100 for like in 20 minutes I can go from like let's say 130 miles range to 225, right? So I can kind of make my trip a little bit quicker, whereas I think other people are waiting about an hour to kind of get similar types of range, you know.
Mhm.
But if you want to fully charge your car, it's like even for me it's still going to be an hour wait, you know. So if you're driving long distance, it's like your time to get there exponentially increases, you know.
Yeah.
You should tell people about your Vegas trip and how it took you like 8 hours.
Yeah. So
No one will
typically,
believe that, but you should talk about that. And your car was charged.
yeah, fully charged. Fully charged. So typically from OC to Vegas, it's 3 to 4 hours drive depending on like the traffic, right? But
Yeah.
for EV, it's literally 8 hours drive because I'm at 100% when I'm driving, making the trip,
But
and
let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't leave like at Friday, like at 2 p.m. Like you left super late so you could avoid all the traffic.
yeah, exactly. Left at like I said 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So
Yeah,
that's when
most
all the
empty.
traffic, all died down, right? But I was not even, halfway yet, and I'm already used up 75%, right? And I can't risk it because of the way the routing works. Not every stop has a charging station, right?
Yeah.
So you had to map it right. So I had to stay at a charging station for about an hour and 25 minutes just to get like a full bar, right? And then
And did it go to 100%?
it did go to 100%, yes. And then
Okay.
I had to make another stop. This is when I'm already close to like Vegas, right? But I
Yeah.
had to make that stop in order to be fully charged, like not fully charged, but good for Vegas. So
Yeah.
in all that time, typically I spent 3 hours charging, and then
Damn.
the other 4 hours is for the road. So it all adds up to like an 8 hour trip to Vegas, right? And it doesn't happen with gas car.
Yeah. And the gas car can actually take you to Vegas on a tank,
Yeah, yep.
and you just fill up in
At Vegas, yep,
if you want to.
yep.
So to put that in perspective, people, it took him 8 hours to get to Vegas, and what Techie could have done was just book himself a trip to Japan, and just got to Japan quicker. 'Cause
Yep.
it can take you about 8 to 10 hours to get to Japan. Yeah, that's going to be an issue. Like I want to kind of maybe dive into some of the science, because I think the cupcakes are gonna be like, oh, these guys are EV bashers, but it's like, no, we have the cars. We've been testing them for a year. I used to have a Model 3. Like, they don't make that model anymore. It was the long range 2-wheel drive version, which I thought was cool, but then they stopped making it. So, yeah, isn't it fucking Elon Musk, dude? Right? Like, so basically, like right now, if you want that car, you got to get the dual motor, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't a dual motor. It was just the whatever he used, like the single motor, right? But it was
Yeah.
a long range, so you get 330 miles of range.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be
It's
perfect.
2-wheel drive, so it's more fun.
Mhm.
But like, I had that. I gave it to my dad, right? Because he's like, I just want to be able to use the carpooling. I'm like, cool, you can have it. So then I got eventually into the Taycan, right? Which I love because it feels like a car. But what I want the cupcakes to understand is now we want to dive into some of the science, because there are certain limitations of having an EV that people don't consider. And I think what's happening is when you okay, like, let's just take a step back. Car manufacturers hate making electric cars because they're so expensive. They're much more expensive to make than like let's say what they call now an ICE car, which is an internal combustion engine. So their profit margins are thin. It's why EVs are like so ridiculously expensive. Like, I know people go, oh well, Elon's made a car, it's 40 grand, but that's when he had tax credits. At the end of the day, like, he makes no money off of his normal Model 3. Like, he's banking on everybody getting a dual motor or the performance like on the Model 3s. And with his tax credits running out, like, and I think they're fully gone, because I think for Model 3s you can't even get, I don't know if you can get the federal tax credit for 7 grand anymore. Were you able to get it when you got yours?
Not for 7 grand. I was able to
got-
get the three grand.
Okay, so you got the one from the state. Okay,
Yeah.
so his federal tax credit's gone. So like,
Mhm.
like a Fiat 500e, right, which can only give you 85 miles of range, costs more money to make than their Abarth that they used to have, which is like this really fun, like nifty, like just sporty little Fiat they had. It was dope. Like, I would actually buy one of those because it's like small, compact, and cool. So that car costs 50 G's, whereas the 500, the Fiat 500 Abarth was like 27, I believe.
Yeah.
So one problem is car manufacturers hate it because it's so expensive, and that's why if you really look at most of the EVs that are coming out, like even for Tesla, right? Like, most of their cars are 70 G's and above. Elon Musk, like, yeah, some of his cars are cheap, but he's even said like he makes zero money off of people buying the base car. And with the federal tax credit gone, like, I think all those cars are going to go by about like 8-10 grand.
Yeah.
The other issue is when you live in a state like California, and we've been here our whole lives, and we're a little frustrated because like this state hasn't done shit for us. Like, dude, 20 years, man, they couldn't build high-speed rail. And China, like, we got to put up the video at some point. Like, China literally built a rail system that's 819 miles long from Beijing to Shanghai in 3 years and 5 months. And our rail system was going to be 362 miles, and these fuckers couldn't build anything, right? So we're a little frustrated, So this whole EV push, like, if the industry is going electric, it's not because car manufacturers want to do it and the consumer doesn't want to do it. The governments are pushing it,
Yeah.
It's kind of like communism. It's like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, it's no different, right? Like, you came from Vietnam. Like, you know how it is. It's like they tell you, look, man, you're not going to drink this Voss water. You're going to drink horse piss water because that's all we're going to offer you. You got no choice. Like, so they're forcing this upon us. But I think it's a facade. I think there's a lot of green like billionaires out there who are trying to upend the oil industry, but I think they're going about it wrong because when you live in California, like last week or 2 weeks ago, remember it was super hot here. You saw all the alerts like don't turn on your AC.
Yeah.
Okay, like when it goes above 85 degrees, the state can't keep its power on. Like we're no different than like freaking Somalia, man. You know. So imagine like you have 100 million cars that are only electric.
Hmm.
Like what the hell's gonna happen? Like we will probably have no power for a month.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
like
Yep.
it'll only come on at 9 p.m. But then if everyone's charging their cars at 9 p.m., it's gonna put so much stress on the grid. The grid's gonna shut off. You know,
Hmm.
so I don't see it happening. Like, and also just from a charging point, like, dude, like where are people gonna go and charge? Because it takes so long. You know, like gas stations are so efficient because they're all strategically located in great spots. But we all know with EVs, like we're constantly driving like 10, 20 minutes away from the highway or where we live to be able to charge our cars. And the other thing they don't tell you is like they don't want you to charge your cars at these fast charging stations at 100% because it kills the battery.
Yep.
So it's like a double-edged sword, you know? Like even Porsche says like unless if you're doing extremely long trips, okay, go do it at 100%, but like for day-to-day use, charge it to 80 at the fast charging stations, charge the rest at your house. So there's going to be constraints. Like I just don't see the power capacity first to be able to do. Now let's say they can overcome it, right? Let's now break into the science. Their whole goal is okay, if we get rid of combustible cars that have a fuel source, it's going to clean the environment. But then, like, when you think about it logically, right? Like, we're all, hopefully, some of us are smart here. You go, okay, let's say that's true. We can't keep the power on, so how are they going to generate more power? It's coming from natural gas. And California buys all its power from other states, all the way up to Washington State, to Oregon, like Wyoming. I mean, you name it. Like, we buy power, I think, from 11 different states so we can keep our power on, which makes no sense, right? Like you think we should build some nuclear power plants like China and just be very self-efficient. So if we have to make more gas power plants, whatever they're hoping to offset, right? Like whatever they're hoping to offset in carbon emissions from cars completely gets canceled out. Because think about it, like a natural gas plant probably makes as much emissions as like, I don't know, all the cars like in California, I'm assuming. You know, because think about it, like it has to generate that much electricity to power our cars. Like our cars, those people don't. Our cars have about 7 to 10,000 batteries. That's like having in your house like 10,000 laptops. You know,
Yep.
it's and that's just for one car. And most people in California have like 2, 3 cars because they can't buy a house, so they just go buy cars. You know, like seriously, like you're like fuck, dude, I can't go buy a house. Like I want to go buy a house in South Central. It's $1 million. I'm not gonna go do that. I'm just gonna go buy some cool cars. So like. And then we have all of our TVs. Like how many TVs you got in your place, Techie? Like with your roommates?
Probably 4 or 5.
Yeah. Okay. We all have like 4 or 5 TVs. So like, just this is the shit people don't think about. So whatever we're gonna offset gets null and void, and we're probably going to increase those carbon emissions by just trying to keep the power on. You know. The one thing people don't talk about, and there's a really good article that came out of where is it from? It was about an area in Portugal. It's actually right here. It's called The Curse of White Oil. It's really good. It's from The Guardian. There we go. And Portugal's, the EU's trying to find ways to like not be so dependent on lithium coming from other countries. So Portugal is an area where there's a massive lithium mine. So this is what people don't talk about. We have to mine lithium. And yes, there's like these other elements that people want to use, but the car executives that I've spoken to have all said lithium is the future because it is the best material to be able to store energy for our batteries. Like nothing comes as good as it. But lithium's highly toxic, dude. You know? I'm like the article that I read, they're talking about massive groundwater contamination because they got to mine this lithium deep underneath the ground. Think of it like if anyone has any idea of how shale production works in the United States, where like they just go deep into the bedrock and blow it up, and it just contaminated all the like groundwater in mid America. For some of these places, that's how lithium is. They got to go deep. They got to pull it out. And then think about it, like to make one battery, like you have to have like earth remover, diggers, like massive machinery. You got to mine it. You got to transport it. It gets processed. Like I remember at one point we were studying years ago when I was getting my MBA, like about like to make one hybrid battery on a Toyota Prius, the carbon emissions was more than like making the same similar car that's just not a hybrid. So let's say like a Toyota Corolla, because they had to mine the stuff from like Africa. Okay, they would then ship it to Japan, because Panasonic was, they had to like do their magic to make the battery. It would then get resent to Germany, where they're like, it went through some processing and other like manufacturing phase. Then it would get sent to North America, to their unit out here. Then it would get sent back to fucking Japan, and then from there the car would get sent back to America. I mean, so just, and this is what people don't get. Like nothing is going to be carbon neutral. It's literally going to be impossible unless if we want to live like our ancestors, which is like ride a donkey and a horse and use wooden sail ships. I think that's the thing that people don't get. So while these governments are trying to push everyone towards this EV route, I don't think it's going to solve the climate crisis. Plus, there's this big thing in the world west of America called China, and another big thing called India. Combined, they have like over 4 billion people. China has no plans at all to get rid of their gas market for cars, because they know that's where the money's at.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to be interesting is we might live in a world where if you want a really cool car, you're probably going to have to go to like places like Iran, Dubai, like some of the Middle Eastern countries, because like they produce oil and they got the money, and they're going to probably be like, go to Porsche and be like, look, I don't want a fucking electric sports car. Like, make me a GT3 RS with an engine and we will fund it. And our people will buy it,
Yeah.
So people are going to scour the world to go buy this car. Like, China's going to be like, look, I got 2 billion people. We want those cool cars as well, But just the carbon emissions alone to make those batteries is so much more, And when we're all using these cars, if we have to all just be EV, I just don't see. I think what's going to happen is people will go, oh, wow, look, the environment is getting quote unquote better. And then like 5 years after that, they're going to see these massive carbon spikes because of all the power plants that have to be built to supply us power. It's just, there's just no way it's going to happen. There's too many people. Like if for example, there's like 2 million people in the whole state of California and we all went EV, I think at that point there might be like a carbon reduction, but we just have so much shit that requires electricity. I mean, my watch requires charging now. Like that's to the point where we've gone,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, all of your points are valid, but and I do agree with most of it. But just to wrap it up, in conclusion, what are like 3 main points why EV isn't right for the future?
Ooh, there's a lot, but 3 main points. I think the first main point is going to be cost. The cost to us as a consumer. I think EVs are going to be the car for people who have money, and people who can't afford it are going to be left out because they're expensive to make. And there's a reason why the better EV cars, all of them, are 6 figures, or they approach 6 figures.
Yeah. Just to add into that point real quick, sorry to cut you off. The Model 3 actually recently just upped their price to 4,000, I believe.
Okay.
Or 3,000. So they just upped their price just now.
So that kind of reaffirms what we said earlier. Without their tax credit, he's going to have to go up like 7-10 grand. So this is probably his first spike increase.
Yep,
You know,
exactly. Hmm.
so price I think is going to be a huge thing. So if you're like coming from a low income neighborhood or a community that isn't well off, you're going to be left out of this market. And the question is like, how are they going to survive, right? So I think cost is a big issue. The second one is, I would say, practicality. You can't, unless if you're driving 10 miles a day, EV is great. But to be EV alone, you're going to hit a lot of roadblocks. And we talked about that. The charging's an issue. They will never get the charging faster because the batteries are constrained. I mean, look, like the reality is this, dude. This is an iPhone. They've had 20 years to figure out how to like make us be able to charge our iPhones in 10 minutes, but they can't do it because like the battery will melt, right? So there's a limiting factor in the physics of just charging your battery-based car. So I think the practicality is going to be the main issue. People are going to see like, wow, like while it's a cool car to have, it shouldn't be the only car I have, because if you want to go to Vegas or if you drive a lot, you're constantly going to be charging. Like we talked about, we're always charging every 2 days. Like imagine you're like a construction worker, dude. Like you're never going to make it to your job, you know? The third point is the illusion that the carbon offset is going to be so good that we're going to reduce carbon emissions, and that's just an illusion. The car will be clean, but everything involved in making the car will not be clean, right? So the mining of the lithium, the mining of the parts, the shipping, the transportation, the production of the car, there's still going to be some carbon there, but I think most of the carbon is going to come from the actual mining for the battery. And then it's going to come from the electricity needed to give us all power to keep the lights on and the air conditioning and to charge all these cars. You know,
Yeah.
I think I think instead of telling people you can't have an ICE car, what they should do is they should promote innovation and just tell the oil companies and car manufacturers, look, maybe maybe we don't get rid of ICE cars, but your mix has to be better. You have to provide us a fuel that is 85% as clean as an EV, because EVs right now, they say are 85% cleaner, not 100, it's 85% cleaner than an ICE car. And whether that's hydrogen or synthetic fuels that Porsche is making, or even just the gasoline you put in your car, I'm pretty sure they can get it to the point where it's going to be much cleaner, right? But they just put a quota on it. Like if you want to sell like unleaded gas cars, it can only be like 30% of your market. Like the other 50% has to be zero emission fuel based, and the other 20% could be EV. They can just something like that, like off the top of my head, because the practicality and the cost and the electricity generation, these are things that people don't consider, and I think these things are going to hinder it. And I think if things don't change, like a Honda Civic is going to probably cost you $80,000 a year. Those bans take place if they stay in place. So all the cupcakes out there, if you want your next Bitcoin, if you live in California in the year 2034, go buy every Ford pickup truck you can on loan and sell them for like $100,000 more on January 1st, 2035. Just a business thought. Just a business thought. I think there'll be much more demand for those cars.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, just to reel in all of our points, we're only here to give perspective about like the current situation with EVs, right? We're not EV haters. We're not bashing on Elon. We're just giving perspective of how the result will end up if this continue in the future. So with that being said, is there any positive that you have driving your Porsche?
They did a magnificent job in making the car feel like a real car. I think, and I apologize to all the Tesla people out there. I think one of my gripes with Tesla is it feels like a giant iPad when I drive it. That's my only issue. But, you know, I tell people, you wouldn't get the Taycan without Tesla. I mean, that's just the reality. Like, he pushed it. I mean, he lobbied a lot. He's done a lot of shady things to, like, offset his actual EPA numbers, right? Like he claims one thing, but it's never the same. But I love the way my car feels. As a car enthusiast, like, and I'm pretty sure you can feel this in your car. Like, there are certain things about the driving aspect which are awesome. Like the instant torque is like so intoxicating. Um, it is like when I'm making short trips, I'm always going into my Taycan. You know, I'm not gonna go take my M3 out, for example.
Yep.
You know,
Hmm.
like I'm going to the grocery market. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I don't want to waste gas. Like, and that's where the beauty of EV comes in. It's like having a giant fucking Power Wheels that is more fun to drive and safer, and you get to go places. You know.
Yep.
Um, so there's a lot of benefits to that. That from a driving standpoint, like for me, the torque and the Porsche, you know, it's going to feel more sporty, of course, because it got a better suspension. It's made to just go very very fast. You know, it's unfortunately I wish America had higher speed limits because like the car, if you drive it in Germany, is like such a different beast than out here. You know. Um, I think also just like sometimes the ease of just getting in, going a short distance, coming back, and just charging at home is great. You know, I still love going to the gas station, like, because the ones that I go to, like, they're awesome. The staff is great. You know, I like supporting those local businesses. So there are positives to it. I just don't think it's the only solution. I think if it's the only solution, we're all going to be screwed. Like right now, people are killing each other at charging stations. You know, like you've seen it. Like
Yep.
people are fighting. You know,
Hmm.
so I think it's a solution, but not the solution.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see how this unfolds. How about you? What are your final thoughts on?
You know, I just want to say that it's a great driving experience, regardless of whether it's a Porsche or it's a Tesla, like whatever. I think all EVs are a great driving experience,
Yeah.
right? And it's very comfortable, no noise. Um, Overall, it's the battery is it's a big like con for me. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
And all your other points of of how it's going towards the future. That's it's all correct, but for me, it's a great driving experience. I can't complain. I can't say anything bad about that.
Do you? I don't know how I'd phrase this. Like, you know, for me, like, I'm a big petrol head. Okay. Like, I'm a big car enthusiast. You know that.
Hmm.
For me, like, there's a beauty to like when I hear like the motor from like a Porsche GT3 RS or GT2 RS or like a Lamborghini like Huracan, right? Because it's got a V10 engine in it, or like an Aventador which has a V12. Like there's something about those cars, and like an M3 or like a C63 that like they just have beautiful engines. Um, Even though a lot of people will say the F80 M3 has a kind of a squeaky engine, but from the inside it sounds good. Like to me, there's like a soul to those cars that I think EV lacks. Like for me, like I love the Taycan. I had fun driving the Tesla, and I want people to know, like I had fun. I think there's a lot of product quality issues that they gotta like fix, you know, because you're paying a lot of money for those cars. But I don't know. Like for me, like the sound of like a Ferrari V8 pre-turbo is so intoxicating, man. It's like sex on wheels, and I think those are things that I will miss if this is going to be the future. I feel people are going to have a nostalgia for those,
I mean,
for that type of experience.
I don't want to cut you off, but speaking like in general, right? Not a lot of
Yeah.
people can afford a Ferrari, a Lambo, or an M3, right? Ain't nobody trying to hear like a Civic exhaust, right? I'd rather
No.
just be in my Tesla not hearing anything. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
hear a Toyota going off, right? Just speaking from a
Oh, you're
general
going to get
standpoint,
all the import people mad at you.
I mean, they can go ahead and do whatever they want. Most of them, they don't even have real exhaust. They just straight pipe their stock exhaust.
Yeah.
So
And you got
whatever.
I know.
Yep, yep. It sounds
yeah.
like a Japanese girl. No offense.
Which actually are awesome.
Yeah, they are,
They
but
sound cheaper.
if you hear that 24/7, it can be annoying. Too much of a
Yeah.
good thing is also a bad thing.
Maybe, but a Ferrari V8 never gets annoying.
Yeah, I agree with you,
I
but
think
not a
okay.
lot of people can afford that.
No, I agree with that. I think it's I think it's the aspiration to get there. You know, I think, I mean, like even like a Ford Mustang V8, dude, has a gnarly sound to it. You know,
Hmm.
I agree with you that there's some exhaust because for people who don't know, like in California, there's a lot of like rice rockets, and they buy very cheap things to make their cars sound louder, and it makes them sound very annoying. It doesn't sound good. Like it doesn't sound like what you got like in Oklahoma or Texas, where people like are actually putting good parts into their cars to make them sound good. Like these things are like at a very squeaky decibel level, where like every time they roll up to you, it's like bam, bam, and you're like, what the f, like, and the people in the car don't even like the sound because you see them like always like rolling with their windows down and trying to blast their music really high because they don't want to hear the sound. Why would you do that to your fucking car, dude?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
one more thing. It's very loud, and they're going like 20 miles an hour. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
no,
saying.
I know, dude. If you go to Glendale, like you see it a lot in California, you know, or like in like Garden Grove in OC.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like all noise. It's like all bark, no power. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a little fucking chihuahua,
Yeah.
and you just want to be like, you know, like shut up, dude. You know, like
That's the theme of our video, Cupcake Generation.
yeah, that's the cupcake generation.
Making a lot of noise, but going 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, go nowhere, just walking on the sidewalk instead of driving in the fast lane.
Yep.
I think to wrap that up, though, one thing that I think EV car manufacturers are gonna have to figure out to make the cars have more of a soul and make it more exciting is, I think, the weight. Because the weight of the cars, all of them are so heavy, and like for day driving is cool, but like even if like you would just want to go cruise through the canyons and stuff, um, you really feel the weight, you know,
Mhm.
because 5,000 pounds, man, is 5,000 pounds. That's a lot of mass, you know. It takes away a little bit from like the excitement of having like a lighter car, and you know, and to support your point, you know, one problem is like they don't make fun cars that are below $40,000 anymore. Like everything is so expensive in the car world, and they're all the same. You know, like when I got my license, there were actually fun cars you can get. Like there was like the Acura like Integra Type R. Um, there was a Volkswagen Golfs, the GTI versions, they like the R32 and so on. Like there were fun little hatchback cars that you could get that were just really cool. And they don't
The
have that.
the WRX STI is very fun to drive.
Yeah, no, that's fun, but it's a little bit, you know, higher echelon.
No,
Actually,
it's
I'm
39
looking at it
grand.
right now.
It's 39
It's
grand.
like okay, but that car used to be like 20 grand.
It used to be
like
29.
10
It
years
used
ago.
to be 29.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. So I'm just saying, like, they're all getting expensive. Like, there was this moment, like in the 2000s, where you can buy really fun cars, like the Subaru, but cheaper, right?
Hmm.
Like a Golf R32, you know, an Integra Type R. Like, those cars, you can get them for like anywhere from like 18 to like 30 grand, and they were fun cars. You know, like a BMW M3 in 1998 cost 42 G's, man. You know, now they're like 80 grand and above. Like, that's what kind-
1998.
Yeah. It's like, you know, roughly like, what, 22 years ago?
That's still kind of expensive.
Yeah, but I mean,
Inflation.
look where it is now.
That's
yeah, I mean,
true.
they're at 100 grand. You know, and that's the thing. Like, that 40K below market doesn't exist anymore. Like, everything is at 40 and above, you know?
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting. We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. So, you know, I think for people who are looking to get an electric car, I think my advice is, they're fun to drive. The torque is very intoxicating. You know that. I know that. But if it's going to be your only car, I would suggest like just have another car on the side. Like, would you recommend that?
I would.
Yeah.
If you have an EV car, you need to have like a gas car for when you're going somewhere, like, you know, long road trip or anywhere that requires a lot of miles. I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah. And even like in your case, like you're driving like 20 miles a day, and if you had another car, then you could actually extend your Tesla's range by, using your gas car more,
Hmm.
and just like kind of switching off, right? One day you drive the gas car, one day you drive your EV. Like that way, you're not charging every 2 days. You might be charging like every 4 days, and then it becomes a little bit.
More
Your
manageable.
time becomes a lot. Yeah, your
Yeah.
time becomes managed a lot better. So,
Hmm.
so if you're buying an EV, have fun. It's not the final solution, but it's great to have, and just make sure you have a spare car on the side, right, Techie?
Yep, exactly.
That is our show. I'm assuming we're done on this, right?
Yep. We
Okay,
cover
guys, that's a
basically
wrap.
cover everything.
We covered everything. If you guys are curious about some of the carbon things and carbon concerns, let us know. We'll do our best to get back to you, and we hope you enjoyed it. And just keep looking out for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, uh, just about any hosting site that Anchor provides. YouTube, we'll be there to entertain you all. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Cupcake Media and our presentation of Education Street. And we look forward to seeing all of you soon.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Give us a like if you know enjoy our conversation about EV. In the future, we're gonna have we already have it planned out. Like we have a lot of different conversation about life, and it's gonna help you guys and us having some perspective on like the generality and like the problems of life, right? So just make
Right.
sure to follow us on all socials, and you know we welcome the support.
Yeah. We look forward to hearing from all of you.